Hello YouTube. The Holy Grail. In our universe it's the mystery of all mysteries, the treasure of all treasures, an object of obsession of all of history's treasure hunters and of many fictional stories. Now, in the Elder Scrolls universe there's a similar treasure which all of Tamriel's treasure hunters go wild for. The Eye of Argonia. A mystical treasure with many legends about it. It's an artifact that has been referenced in the series ever since the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard in 1998, and that I've wanted to do a video on for quite some time now. And today is that day, as recently we got some significant new lore on the Eye. So, let's roll the intro and talk about Tamriel's most legendary treasure. So, the Eye of Argonia, the dream of any Tamrielic treasure hunter. It's said to be the priceless king's jewel of ancient Blackmarsh, and it's part of many legends. Any treasure hunter worth their jib has tried to find the jewel at least once throughout their career, but this priceless jewel has remained unfound ever since legends about it surfaced for the first time. It's quite literally the Elder Scrolls universe's holy grail, as it's a mystical treasure which has different powers and characteristics in every legend that it appears in, with some legends describing it as a key to a lost hidden city somewhere deep in the marshes of Blackmarsh, and other legends describing it as a large gem with mystical magical powers, and others describe it simply as a large priceless emerald worth an absolute fortune. All of these descriptions, despite their inconsistencies, have drawn treasure hunters to Eastern Tamriel since time immemorial, as many believe that the Eye is still very much out there, waiting to be found somewhere in Morrowind or Blackmarsh. Every few decades, treasure hunters from all over Tamriel become excited when someone claims to have found a new lead to the Eye's location. Every treasure hunter on the continent then usually travels to Blackmarsh and Morrowind, the two provinces where the Eye is alleged to be hidden, and go on a frantic search for the Eye across the provinces, trying to pursue the new leads, only for the excitement to then die down again once everyone comes back empty-handed. It's also become a notorious origin for scams apparently, as con artists seem to sell fake maps to the Eye all over Tamriel, as they hope to make a quick buck of gullible people. Now, despite all the legends about the Eye, there's very little that we can say about the Eye with absolute certainty, but there are some things that we do know, however some of it may still be legend. Number 1, if it exists, it was likely created by or for the ancient Argonians who lived on Tamriel way before the elves from Altmuris landed on the continent. The Argonians at this time had a quite advanced civilization that they themselves called the Days of Stone Nests, which is the period in history where they built their massive Zenmir pyramids. They were most likely Tamriel's most advanced civilization at this time, as the Argonians during this period were obsessed with building structures which could last forever, as they feared change. Modern historians call this period the Zenmir period, and during it the Argonians had a massive empire which stretched across the marshes. It's likely that the Eye of Argonia was made during this period, as after this period and after an event called the Duskfall, the Argonians became way more primitive, as they instead became obsessed with impermanence, and it's said that they lost a lot of their craftsmanship and metalworking techniques, so it's likely that if such a beautiful jewel was made, it was probably made during this period. Now, we know that during the 3rd and especially the 4th era the Argonians once more became less primitive, but the jewel was made in ancient times according to its description, and legends about it have existed for millennia, way before they once more became a bit more advanced. Now, if you want to know more about that event, which I called the Duskfall, a dedicated video on that subject can be found in the description. It explains why the Argonians suddenly became very primitive, but what's important for now is that it was during the pre-Duskfall Zenmir period that the Eye was most likely created. Now, the second thing that we can say about the Eye with relative certainty is that the protagonist of the old game, the Elder Scrolls Adventures Redguard, Cyrus, and his close associate Tobias were both searching for the Eye at the tail end of the 2nd era, and the cancelled Elder Scrolls Adventures sequel game, After Redguard, would have featured the search for the Eye. Now, the third thing that we know about the Eye is that it's believed to rest either in Blackmarsh, where it was most likely made, or in Morrowind, as there are some legends about the Chimer, the progenitor race to the Dark Elves or Dunmer, having stolen the Eye of Argonia during one of their raids into Blackmarsh. And finally, a fourth thing that we know is that during the Second Era, around the time of the Three Banners War, all of Morrowind's treasure hunters suddenly started searching for the Eye again, as there were rumors that the legendary thief and treasure hunter, the Lark of Rosgard, was on the Eye's trail, and he has the reputation among thieves of not wasting his time on uncertain businesses. So everyone knows if he's on the trail, there must be a serious new lead. In the upcoming Elder Scrolls board game Betrayal of the Second Era, you play as a treasure hunter searching for the Eye in one of the quest lines. Now, I recently got early access to the game by its creators, Chip Theory Games, who sent me a preview copy in order to cover the lore and stories within the game. I made a video about the game's main story last week, which is in the description, and in the description I'll also put a link for you to check out the game, as I can recommend the game for any Elder Scrolls fan who's also a board game fan looking to have a good time in Tamriel. Anyway, spoilers for that game's Morrowind Undaunted questline are ahead, so if you're looking to experience the questline yourself, turn off the video now. Alright. So, during the Three Banners War, like I said, all of Morrowind's treasure hunters got into a frenzy as the legendary Lark was after the Eye, leading to other treasure hunters to quickly go and pursue him, hoping to find the Eye before him. Now, during that questline you find ancient-looking Argonian murals from the Zenmir period and go from ruin to ruin, chasing clues and solving riddles, trying to find something called the Orbit of Hellstrom, which you believe is most likely a reference to the Eye's resting place, as the eye socket by some is called the Orbit. So, you connect the dots and think, okay, that must be the place where the Eye is then resting. Now, unfortunately, this treasure hunt ends in disappointment, as once you pursue all of the leads, you find out that all the murals and clues that you've been following were basically fake and made by the Lark of Rosgard. Now, why did he do that? Because he knew that every treasure hunter and ambitious noble in Morrowind would leave their house in a frenzy once the new lead on the Eye appears, meaning that their homes would be left unguarded, meaning that the Lark of Rosgard, being a thief, could steal all the valuables that they left behind in their now empty houses as they are looking for the Eye. A pretty good plan, but disappointing to us as we hope to find the mystical Eye of Argonia for ourselves, but instead of finding it, we find out that it's all a big scam. But we also find out that the game's main villain, who I talked about in the video on the game's story, was also looking for the Eye. Now, the creators of the board game were nice enough to allow me to ask questions to the game's writers, and I asked them what exactly the main villain thought the Eye could do for her plans, how it factored into her plans. And to that I got a pretty interesting answer. They told me that the main villain also had no idea what the Eye could do, as she was simply looking for powerful artifacts to help her achieve her goal. But then the writers told me that they were not allowed to say what the Eye could do, and that one of the conditions of them being allowed to work with the Eye and reference the Eye in the game was that they did not give any definitive answers to its powers and its exact nature, which means that for the time being Bethesda does not want us to know what the Eye is exactly. I found that pretty interesting, and I really want to thank the writers that they even allowed me to ask some questions, so yeah, that was very cool, and be sure to check out the game in the description below. Anyway, the fact that Bethesda is not ready to reveal what the Eye is could mean that it may be all sorts of things, and some ex-Bethesda writers from at the time of the original inception of the Eye, during the Elder Scrolls Redguard and to Morrowind, even suggested it may be something completely different from a gem, as they wrote a lot of weird Argonian lore at the time. So we may never find out, but I do have some speculative options for you. One is based on the original material that the Eye is quite clearly referencing by name, as it may be similar to the Eye of Argon, a large red gem that, according to the texts, smolder like a miniature inferno and has mysterious undefined powers attributed to it. The Eye of Argon originally comes from a cult classic, extremely bad swords and sorcery story named The Eye of Argon, in which the gem has quite simply the role of being an object of desire and source of conflict that everyone wants, but then nobody really knows what it can do. Now, while the Eye of Argonia seems to be a bit different to the Eye of Argon in many aspects, I still figured I should probably give it a mention, if only because if we ever see the Eye in games, it may perhaps have a similar appearance, plus, you know, it references name quite bluntly, so figured it was worth a mention. Now, the second more relevant theory is that the Eye may be similar to, or maybe even is the same thing as, the Remnant of Argon. Now, the Remnant of Argon is an ancient Argonian amber artifact that plays a role in the Elder Scrolls Online's Murkmire questline. The Remnant of Argon in this story is a large amber orb created by an ancient Argonian tribe who resisted the Duskfall, so tried to stay more advanced and continue living in their stone cities. However, during the 2nd century of the First Era, they were being overrun by the Barsabic Aeliads, the Aeliad elves who settled away from Cyrodiil into Blackmarsh. At the time, the Barsabic Aelids attempted to experiment on Argonian souls, and thus they were attacking the tribe and trying to harvest the Argonian souls of the tribe. Seeing that they were losing this fight, the Argonian tribe, which was called the Root Whisper tribe, together with their history, created the Remnant of Argon. Now, this artifact was able to hold the souls of all Argonians in the tribe and hide them until the Aelids moved on. Unfortunately, the Aelids would stay for hundreds of years, luckily never finding the Remnant of Argon, but this also meant that the hundreds of Argonian souls that were locked in this artifact were now locked in a lost artifact, as no one but the tribe knew of its hidden location, and the history that also knew its location was forced into sleep and cut off from all other histories. Now, of course, during the questline, we find the Remnant wake up the history and free the souls of the Argonian tribe, and all good, destroying the Remnant of Argon in the process. Meaning that if this Remnant of Argon was the Eye of Argonia, it was found long ago and destroyed long before the Third Era even began. Now, this is definitely a possibility, as the Eye has gotten so many mystical stories and legends attributed to it, that even if the existence and destruction of the Remnant of Argon would become common knowledge, a lot of people would simply refuse to believe that it would be the Eye of Argonia and would simply keep on searching, as the stories had become so outlandish by this point that nobody would believe that that was the Eye of Argonia. But to me, the similarities are pretty striking. Both are large gem-like objects made in an ancient time when Argonians still lived in stone cities, and the Eye is described as a key to a lost Black Marsh city, while the Remnant of Argon contains the souls of basically all of the inhabitants of a lost Argonian city. And the Eye is said to have awesome mystical powers, and you can't tell me that being able to hold the souls of that many Argonians does not qualify as awesome mystical powers. So I personally think that it's pretty likely that the Remnant of Argon may be the thing that became known as the Eye of Argonia to the public and to treasure hunters all across Tamriel, but we can't be sure. It may also be, as my friend from the Imperial Library, Mr. Benefactor, theorizes, that the Eye of Argonia is or was an even bigger version of the Remnant of Argon, an artifact able to hold the souls of all Argonians for them to survive the end of the world, or perhaps the Eye once existed and it helped them survive the end of the previous world or worlds in order for them and perhaps the histories to enter the current world's creation. But he admits himself he doesn't really have any evidence to back that one up. Still, I like the theory so much that I wanted to share it here. But still, the Eye of Argonia may be something entirely different. Like I said, there are endless theories and stories about it on Tamriel itself, and considering Bethesda's predisposition, I don't really think that we will ever learn the truth of it. But still, it's fun to speculate. And honestly, it's a bit of a shame that the Elder Scrolls Adventure series only ever saw one entry in Redguard. Would have really liked to see the sequel to Elder Scrolls Redguard, where we would actually go and search for the Eye. Still, maybe one day we will get the sequel. And while I'm not holding my breath for it, it would be cool to get an Uncharted, Tomb Raider or an Indiana Jones style game in Tamriel one day where we search for the Eye. Again, not holding out my breath for it, but would be really cool. Anyway, that was about all I can say about the Eye of Argonia, and I really hope that you enjoyed this video. And if you did, and if I managed to teach you something new about the Elder Scrolls lore today, why not like the video, as that's how YouTube decides whether or not the video is worthy or not.
That being said, all there's left for me to do is to vocally thank my top Patreon supporters. Mr. Bernardo Binda, His Soul, Gabriel Binda, Doji, K-Legend-M, King Chris, Lance Vandertooth, Volker of Argonia, RP the Beast, Devin Mattingly, Rakai, and Sword of Bushido. They and all the others on screen make my videos possible, and for that I am very grateful. That said, I'll see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Probably next week. Bye bye.